Hey everybody, it's Rob, Frontline Mindset with National Fire Radio. I am here with Joe today. I have this is a good guest. I met him out at Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the Lake, which is a theme going on currently here. But he had a tool that was being demoed at the lake, and he was selling it, and I wasn't sure what to think. And then I started watching guys force doors with it, and then I got to actually get my hands on it, and that's when I kind of figured out about this whole Side Charlie tool that he designed with his family. And I have two currently in the back of my car. So that's, I trust in the tool. Joe, thank you for coming on today and being here with us. Tell us, first off, how is Side Charlie Fire Tools doing today?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob. I appreciate being on. Site Charlie is doing great. We're kind of in an exciting phase of growth right now. Starting 2025, we're planning more conferences than we've gone to in previous year, building out inventory for tools. We had some new tools for 2024, so it's just kind of it's a good exciting time for the company. This will be basically our fifth year in sales.
Awesome. And for those who are listening, just tell us quickly about yourself, Joe, where you're from, and what your experience in the fire service is.
Yeah, I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, so born and raised here. Um, right around high school, senior year is when I got into the fire service, but I was one of those lucky people whose dad was before me in the fire service. So I grew up visiting the fire department regularly. I got to do ride-alongs, all that great stuff. When it came to, I was kind of one of those kids that always thought they were going to be a pro athlete, and that quickly proved itself otherwise. So senior year is kind of when I got pretty serious into thinking of it as a career. And my brother and I, so my older brother, we were just throwing out applications wherever we could, including Madison Fire. And in the meantime, became volunteers. So got through our fire certs, started our volley gig, which was awesome. Learned quite a bit there. And then it was basically where can we get on full time? So we ended up both traveling out to the East Coast. My brother was about maybe a year before me. But at that time, we had fire certs and paramedic. So we're pretty serious about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up out just outside the DC area, which was awesome. My brother is still out there. He's a lieutenant out there.
Where at?
Fairfax County.
Okay.
Yep. Really great organization. Kind of felt like I was with the Yankees or something when I got out there. I mean, just a big department with a lot of resources. So something I really hadn't seen before that. And got assigned to a really great fire station, Reston Station 25. Had some great mentors. I mean, when I think back on those first 3 years, I was so lucky. Didn't really realize it at the time, to be honest.
Yeah.
But just really fortunate to land in that station.
Who were the mentors for you out in Fairfax, if you're comfortable talking about it?
Yeah. So everyone from our captain on down really was influential in some way. So I had Captain Shellhammer out there, just a stand-up guy, lead from the front kind of guy. Clemmy Rivera was our truck driver. Dave Prohaska. I got so many guys I can name. Chris Puzingaro was a huge guy for me. He taught me a lot about forcible entry. Vinny Malvoso. So there's just all these guys that were so good to me, and kind of one of those things when you're a young firefighter, you kind of don't even understand what they're providing you at the time. But just looking back on it, it was a fantastic experience. And then getting a little deeper with that is where I started getting into the tools. So good East Coast tactics. We when I was riding the truck, my riding position really, I had the hook and halligan a lot, and that's kind of the impetus of this. Is when I kind of felt like I always wish I could shrink down the hook and make it more portable. I wish I could extend out the halligan for more leverage. So our first tool, the Side Charlie tool, was actually a hook and halligan together. That was the start of it.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say like why don't you jump into the story about Side Charlie Custom Tools and how it how it grew into this family business here.
Yeah, so just kind of like an idea in my head. I hadn't done anything with it. Um, and then meanwhile, so I had a hard decision to make if I was gonna. I ended up throwing my hat, naming the hat for back home, and it just seemed important to me to get back here at some point. So I did take the job in Madison, um, and it was still in the back of my head this idea of the tool. Could we combine these two tools that are fantastic tools, get more leverage out of the Halligan and more portability out of the hook? Um, so kind of took that home. And by the time I was in the academy in Madison, I'd gone through Fire One about 3 times. So, I was maybe doodling a little bit in my notebook in the back of the classroom. Um, just doing some sketches and stuff. And it was where we could kind of fab up the first prototype. It was right around then. So this was like 2016. And we built out the first prototype. And actually, my guys came out from Fairfax and we tested the first one. And it actually blew us away how well it worked out. We kind of weren't sure, is the thing going to snap in half? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
But it was a crude design, but it kind of proved itself out right off the bat, um, which was neat. And I ended up approaching Sean Wilson from Rise Above Fire Training. I'm sure you guys are familiar, but he was a guy that I was kind of looked up to, watching his YouTube videos online and all that stuff. And I knew he was really a Halligan nerd. So that was the first guy I kind of approached and said, is this going to be a viable idea? And is there any contacts you could offer? I knew he was real close with Bob from Firehooks Unlimited. So he said, yeah, send me your prototype and I'll speak with Bob. And so he kind of vouched for me, which was awesome because, of course, at the time, this was just all on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
But so we actually ended up we went into business with Bob more or less. He was kind enough to allow us to use some of his product. Of course, we didn't have the forging guys to get started and all that. So if you have one of our Gen 1 tools, that was, a Firehooks version of our tool. And we ran with that for about 2 years.
What when it came to inspiring you on the tool, was it that base in the truck in Fairfax that really drove the inspiration for you to get this done?
Yeah, I think that was really it. Those were the two tools I just gravitated towards. Like, I feel that those two tools are probably the most useful tools in the fire service, the hook and the Halligan. And it just seemed like a natural fit to me, which is a little bit ironic because we actually don't offer that model anymore. It wasn't the most popular tool we made, but it's actually a really great tool. I get people that still ask for that combo. But from there, really, it was kind of just, buddies wanted one. My brother, I was making one-off tools. And then it was like, all right, are we going to do this thing for real? And I thought, you know, this is something I could really go for. I could get behind and passionate about. And that's when we started talking with Firehooks. So
Right. What's like this is 100% made in the United States?
yeah, so I guess to fast forward, so we worked with Firehooks for 2 to 3 years, and that was fantastic. We appreciated that opportunity. At some point, I just had to have a hard conversation with Bob and just say, like it's not really viable to have a business when we're purchasing through pre-made, you know, parts from manufacturers. So it was like, we got to do this thing on our own or not do it at all. And so I think it was 2 years ago we started the process of doing all our own designs from square one, and we invested in forging dies, which, if you know, they're very, very expensive. And when we did all that, we decided we want this thing to be, as to fork, it's going to be 100% made in the U.S. So from there, it was trying to find a forging house, you know, that was not only willing to take on the work, which is pretty difficult, but then, be U.S. based. And we were lucky enough to find one in the Detroit area. And so between Wisconsin and Michigan, the tool is completely start to finish made in the Midwest. So we're pretty proud of that.
And I mean, you hit on it just right now. Like, there's challenges that, like, to make something in the country, sometimes, like, you want to buy American, you want to have American made, but like you said, like, getting somebody to do those molds for that fort and all that stuff, like that, like, you had to go to Detroit to find it, and you were lucky to find somebody, because those are some of the challenges, especially when you're, like, how long did you have to work at that? Like, how long did it take you to get the to find that?
Yeah, it was probably like a 6 month process, and it, it it was about 25 shops turned us down before one said yes. So it was really it was daunting, and I think people don't realize how um, how hard it is to find manufacturing in the U.S. these days, and
Right.
that to be able to even remotely compete, right? Because is someone willing to value that and pay a little bit more for made in the USA? Some people are, some people aren't. But meanwhile, so we had that hunt to do, and then meanwhile we were completely redesigning these tools from the ground up. So our Gen ones were we actually sold through the rest of the Gen ones, and it was okay. How can we make this design even better from the first one? So while we're getting the forging in process, we're designing all the rest of the extendable tool. So including spending a ton of time on the adze and fork and fine tuning what we call the geometry, so the lines of the Halligan, so that when you put that in the door, it's going to lock into place. It's going to give you just that right torque on the door without slipping out, kicking out. It's got the really nice squared off ends, so if you want to strike them, all these little things, including if you've seen our fork, which I know you have, Rob, that it's very different than most forks. So
Yeah.
we tried to add some utility into the fork as well. So just those types of things.
Now, I know on the website you guys talk about your boosting the mechanical advantage to like 20. Does it 22 to 1?
Yeah. So our Charlie bar, which is our big guy, that's the 22 to 1.
So can you kind of, like, I mean, it, for those who don't know, like, how does this work in making forcible entry, the mission of that, a little bit more successful?
Yeah. So we have like a pretty good grouping of tools. We have 6 different tools, right? Three extendable and 3 fixed length tools. The 3 extendable, the idea is either maximizing leverage or maximizing portability. So our shorter tools are meant, they can still extend to a normal size bar, but you collapse it down and now you're into the 22-inch range, which is easier to carry. Or, for military or law enforcement or whatever, you're putting in a backpack or something like that. But the bigger tool, like you're describing, so it starts out standard at 30 inches, but then you're extending out to 44. And that's basically the equivalent of making yourself like 33% stronger. So, when we train, we talk about, yeah, working at the door is only the first part of the sequence, right? If you exhaust yourself forcing that door, now you have, either search or, fire attack, whatever you're doing, you've just expended all that energy. So having that extra leverage is really huge. And then not only that, but the reach. So can you go inside a structure, pop a hole? You have you realize you're in the second floor, you have an attic fire instead of a second floor fire. It's enough to extend out. Now you can pop a hole, get that nozzle up there. So there's just a lot of utility, or for taking windows, whatever it might be. That extra length is really helpful. Um, and you'll see guys combining tools like putting a hook on, a bar or whatnot. But there's some downsides to that. Number one, you're carrying the two tools together, so a hook and a Halligan together is 17 pounds roughly. So it's much heavier than the Charlie bar. And then number two, you don't really see that technique on an inward door. You're only really going to see that in an outward swinging door, where you're combining tools like that. So where you can use the Charlie bar's length on an inward swinging door as well. So it is definitely advantageous on the fire ground.
Now, when you've had your tools have been out, like I said, it's been, I think it was 2 years ago that I met you. Um, what are some, like, have you heard back on some of the successes of the tool?
Yeah, I wish we heard more. I think I'll run into people and they'll say stuff like, "Man, we did this or that with the tool and it was like fantastic," or how well it worked on a call. And a lot of times people just don't share that. But we did have one recently. It was actually a police officer out of Phoenix. They had outfitted their rigs with um, their patrol rigs with Halligans, and there was actually body cam footage of the guy making a rescue out of a car that went into a swimming pool.
Oh, wow.
It was completely submerged, and the guy actually crawled on top of the car and broke the sunroof window and pulled the guy out. So just seeing that on video is just it makes it all worth it, right? I mean, we spend so much time at this. Every day off, we're either packing orders or doing something, and to see that live and see that guy actually get pulled out of the car was huge. So I'm sure there's more that pop up all the time. We just we don't always get the feedback, but if you guys even sharing, like the other day, I think you said like you had pulled a lock with the
Mm-hmm.
tool, and like just hearing that is awesome. It really kind of validates it for us.
What for you on the job? Which one of your tools have you used
Yeah.
with success?
So I'm kind of always demoing something out. I've carried the Charlie bar, I've carried the Heritage. Lately, I've been carrying the Heritage a lot. So the last fire we had, I was able to sit for several doors with that. Um, but it's something where I'm always typically demoing, a product and just vetting it out. But the cool thing is, between my brother and I, and guys that we consider, close friends, we have a lot of info coming in, right? Because we're all working in the field, so that kind of separates us as well from just a manufacturing company. We're
Yeah.
actually firefighters in the field, and actually we work with law enforcement as well. So we have those guys, when they're like, between all of us, somebody's forcing the door. You know, once in a week, I'm hearing from somebody, "Hey, I forced this door on this. You know, I took this window, I did whatever. So we're just getting constant feedback. So it's pretty neat. I've always been able to surround myself with pretty incredible guys. So I'm lucky that way.
So when it comes to like you've created forcible entry tools, and you know from the aspect of this, like you created an expandable forcible entry tool that also the original Charlie bar had the hook on it. You have the heritage line. Like you're in this business, you have to understand the fundamentals of forcible entry. And with that being said, like what how would you define the mindset of a firefighter approaching forcible entry, whether they're using your tool or not? Because this is kind of now your world that you're operating in, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Um, I think understanding the tool is so important. It can't be understated enough. If you know how to use that tool, you can get through anything. Literally, um, if you're just methodical about it, um, and there's really only a finite amount of ways to use the tool. So let's say there's like 10 moves, right? But if you know those 10 moves front to back, and as soon as you get hung up with one thing, you know how to overcome that and go back or forward in your progression. There's really no door you can't open. You're just going to be moving up and down the door, working those progressions, and it's pretty incredible how proficient you can get with the tools. I wouldn't say I'm any master at forcible entry, but I would say, me and the guys are very proficient, and it's allowed us to actually go out and train, which is another fun, cool aspect of um, this this company. So I would just say if you're getting into forcible entry, number one, it's going to be a fun thing. Everybody likes to break stuff, right?
Heck
But
yeah.
yeah, I would really get into the leverage of the tool and understand when you're pushing or pulling the tool in a certain direction, what is that leverage? What is that mechanical advantage? And then you can understand, am I trying to spread the door further, or am I trying to get more power out of the tool? Those are the two dynamics, really. It's kind of an inverse relationship. So the more you spread, the less power you have. The more power you have, the less you spread. So if you're rolling the adze, right, you get that 2-inch adze roll, you're at your
Mm-hmm.
highest mechanical advantage, but you're only moving the door 2 inches. So those are kind of always a question you have to have in your head. Like, what am I really trying to do right now with the door?
Um, there's one thing. Oh, so when it comes to like you've gone like I don't know how many doors you forced the weekend of the conference that I was at out at Lake of the Ozarks. You've and I'm assuming that's not the one and only time you've had those kind of sessions, right? When it comes to firefighters approaching forcible entry, what are some of the common mistakes that you see people doing, and how can they avoid them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think maybe a common starting mistake is just wanting to go for power. They're just trying to eat through the door, basically. Um, and I think, if you're maybe a little inexperienced or whatnot, work on the technique before you work on muscling through the door. Because what usually happens is you're slipping out, you're using the tool in the wrong direction, stuff like that. So I guess just slow down, and that's why when we teach, we go through the tools first. We actually talk about the door construction, and then we put them together and start working forcible entry. So that would be my only piece of advice: is that just slow down, um, and don't try and muscle it.
Um, and it kind of leads me into my next question. Training, you know, your experience, how does training play into the role and proficiency, especially when you have a high pressure situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, it. everybody's going to tell you, you fall back on your training, but it really is true. You're not going to understand the concepts better when your heart rate's up at a fire. And that's with anything. And I always try and, we get a lot of opportunity to do forcible entry, which is fantastic. So I feel like we stay pretty brushed up on it. And so that's why I always have to remind myself, okay, get out there, you're doing ladders, search, every other discipline, because, it's easy to get focused in on one thing, forcible entry, but it's crazy important. Even if you do feel like you've got all the tactics down, they're perishable skills. So if you're not out there training it, it's going to go away. And I'm really fortunate that we get out to different conferences, we get out to departments, and we train. It's awesome.
Now, how sorry, when it comes to the technique and approach of somebody who's doing forcible entry, what sets them up to be successful?
Um, well, I'm a little biased, but I think the tools, is one thing. So
Okay.
honestly, when I was talking about the geometry of the tools,
Yep.
it's super important. You'll see Halligans floating around your departments. I'm sure that the curvature of the ads is wrong. The fork is blunt. All these things matter a ton at being successful. Um, so it's not it. People get really brand loyal, which is awesome, um, or they feel like they know um, why one bar is manufactured better than the next. But really, if it doesn't have the right geometry to it, it it doesn't matter. I mean, you're not gonna wrap the door with the ads. You're not gonna get the fork in the between the door and the jam.
Can
So
can
go
you
ahead.
expand on that a little bit? What the right geometry means? Because I think I know what you're saying, but for the viewers out there who might be hearing this for the first time.
Yeah. So basically, like the lines of the tool. How much curvature, how much bevel to the fork, how thin the fork is at the tines, and the ads as well. Is it squared all the way back? Is it, or does it taper on the way back? All those things affect how it reacts on the door. So our tool actually has a very slight curvature of the ads, and then it comes back into a flat. So if you put the ads between the door stop and the door itself, and you pull tension, so you pull the tool perpendicular to the door, that you're going to notice that actually locks into place. That tension was on purpose. That keeps so when you roll your ads, you're not kicking out of the door as much.
Hmm.
So all those little things were thought about, and if you have a good quality Halligan, you have the right geometry.
Now, I looked on the website, and this has been something that's come up in the last couple of years. I feel like it's become very popular. A bunch of manufacturers out there, uh, wedges. Like you have your own that you guys sell? How do the wedges play a part into forcible entry, particularly metal wedges?
So when I go up to the fire academy, I tell the recruits, like, and I'm not advertising for myself, but I tell them that an aluminum wedge is probably the best small tool you can carry. It's so valuable, it's so useful, and oftentimes it's a difference between getting a door and not getting a door. Especially working by yourself, and a lot of the country, you might say, hey, we have pretty good staffing, but even we have great staffing, and we've got four on a rig. And I've forced 90% of the doors that I've forced have been by myself, if not
Mm-hmm.
more. So like our wedge here, I have, um, and if you're not watching it, I'll just kind of describe it to you. But we utilize the back end of the wedge, um, and the reason being is when I was looking at the wedges we were using, I noticed that the gouges and scratch marks stopped at some point, right? Because when you're working a door, you only need about an inch of spread until you can get to the back of the frame. Once you're there, you're golden because you get your adze behind there, you get your fork behind there, and the door is defeated. So you're not utilizing the full 6 inches of the wedge. So I thought, man, what can we do with the back of this wedge? And that's when we decided to cut this fulcrum groove into the wedge. And it might be kind of hard if you haven't seen it, but you can go to our YouTube page as well and watch it being used on the door. But basically, this becomes a way to capture. So instead of capturing in through in a straight on fashion like you would with a fork, we can actually tip it up and set it against the door, and that gives us a groove to push off of with the adze. So it's going to be really hard on here to describe, but once you see it and once you do it in your life, it's the equivalent of turning your 2 inch spread on your adze into a 3 inch spread without changing your mechanical advantage. So if you've seen a wide adze Halligan, that's great, right? You got a big 3 inch
Mm-hmm.
adze on there, but now you went down to a 10-to-1 advantage, which decreased your leverage. You spread the door 3 inches, but you're at a 10-to-1. So with this, you gap the door, you place your chalk, and then you gap again. And you have your 15-to-1 advantage, but now you're pushing the door 3 inches, and most deadbolts can't handle that. Or mortise, if you're working on the mortise.
That is something I wouldn't have talked or thought about. Um, so that looks like I'm gonna have to order one of those from the website.
Yeah, it's kind of
um,
hard to describe on here, but it's actually something that, when we're at training, people have a lot of fun with.
yeah.
Kind of, it kind of clicks and they're like, "Oh man, this is great."
What what advice do you have for somebody for when the door doesn't do what what you're expecting it to do? Like, you get that, you get the tool set, you're working the door, but it's just not, something's going, I don't want to say something's going wrong, but it's not going as expected, and you're starting to get that pang of panic. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I've been there a couple times, and you really need to analyze what's happening. Um, if you can, it's really hard when your adrenaline's up to process things clearly. At least for me, it is. I don't know. But, you know, here's a couple examples. I'll give two examples. So one would be that the door is flexing a bunch, but the locks you're not forcing the lock. That was probably my first humbling moment. Is actually a crappy door. Sometimes crappy doors can be, deceivingly difficult because they
Mm-hmm.
flex a ton. And what are our door props? Our training props are these crazy heavy reinforced steel doors that are, to a degree, really unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
That's what we practice on. So if you get to a real door and it's flexing on you, so if you let's say an inward door and you've rolled your adze down and you're like, holy crap, I got this whole 2 inch spread and, or this whole 2 inch gap and the door has gone nowhere. It's kind of a weird feeling at first. So then you troubleshoot and say, well, I didn't have too much resistance. What I had was I'm not attacking the lock. So you got to move closer to the lock. So capture your progress there and move up or down. So that would be one example of it not going how you thought. Another one I had was um, a split jam. So I don't know if you've ever seen those, but these apartment complexes in our first due, they all have split jams, and it's like a wood jam for the front half and a steel jam for the back half. And
Mm.
what was happening was the whole jam was ripping away from the wall. So the door, so when we were trying to force the door, it was actually pulling the whole frame away from the wall. So we weren't defeating the lock at all. Now we had this gap with black smoke pushing out of it, and we're like, what is going on right now? So we decided now instead of defeating the door, we're actually going to have to defeat between the jam and the wall itself. So when the fire's going, um, you're trying to process that. You got smoke coming out. You're masked up. You're in full gear. It's a little different than just being in shorts and t-shirt at the station training. But those are just a couple examples. And to kind of just reiterate, it's all about going back to square one. So you have those moves, you know what to do. You just have to decide where you're applying it. All of a sudden it wasn't applying it on the door; it's applying it between the wall and the jam. So those would be a couple of ways.
I think communication's an important part of this process too, and not only like if you're working with a partner, but just that when you start going through your forcible entry, if you're talking out loud, you're kind of starting to like pilots don't go through emergency procedures and say that stuff silently in their head. They're going through a book literally and saying like, all right, turn this on, try this, do this, right? So like if you start communicating that you have a split jam or that the door is tight and it's not moving, like these are all things that kind of help out because one lets everybody know around you what's going on, and it helps you go through the checklist so that you can go away from a panic to back to methodically attacking the door, moving up on the locks and defeating the locks instead of having the door defeat you.
Yeah, that's right on. I mean, like we're even big proponents of using two halliards. So if I feel like I'm getting some spread, but something and I say, hey Vinny, put your fork in here, like let's go, or um, help me go adds to the door here. This is what I want. And if you're calling out, if you guys train together and you can actually use the tools in tandem, I mean, that's even better because you can just blow through doors. So we're finding that actually two housing is really effective, and that's one thing we put a challenge out to departments around the country if they wanted to trial out. Our Halligans can actually mate together. So we got quite a few applications. We're actually going to be making a selection this week of we're going to be sending out two bars together that are going to be carried as a set, and it's something that's a little bit out there. It's not completely new, but using two Halligans instead of the Halligan and the axe is pretty effective because you can not only capture like you would with the head of an axe, you can capture your progress. Well, if I do that with a fork, I can capture, but in the same movement, I can push the tool to the door, and now I've captured and I progressed the door even further. So if you get in this leapfrog type thing with two bars together, it's pretty much a home run.
Yeah, I would have that's out definitely outside to me. It's a little outside the box, but I can see it working very very well. Um, the you do this business not by yourself. You have the help of your family as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. It couldn't really be done just myself. So, my dad retired fire. My brother, he's an active firefighter. We do, we're going to all these events together. Um, my brother I'm talking to on the phone just about every day. He's out east, so he does a lot of stuff out east for us. But also, he's the one that if we have an issue or something that I can count on to talk to. Um, my wife, she helps out with the business, whether it's printing labels or packing tools. I mean, even my dog, he's going on deliveries with me and stuff. So it's a family business through and through. And it kind of,
Number one employee right there.
yeah, it keeps it all fun. My mom, even she's run her own business for over 30 years. So just something that, being a firefighter, we had no business background, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
it's learning things from the bottom, how to do invoicing, how to put in purchase orders, all that stuff. It's not necessarily intuitive at the beginning. So those are all things that have been like a huge help to have family around.
What is your most successful product? Like, if there's one that's the most popular that you're selling.
Um, lately, it's been the Heritage Bar.
Okay.
Is our
The
fixed Halligan,
the 30
but
inch or
yeah, the 30-inch seems to be the most popular, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, if you look at the fire service, that is the most traditional. It would be what would be most standard. Um, but I have to say, our wedges are always a great seller, and then of course the Charlie Bar. That was one of our first ever tools, and that's where we cut our teeth was the extendable tools. So I think it makes sense that the fixed bar is the best seller just for the price point and everything.
mm-hmm.
But really, nobody's making an extendable bar like we do.
what what would you say to somebody who's on the fence about the because that's the whole thing, right? Like the extendable bar, like I've used it, so that I'm sold. You don't have to sell me the tool because it's in the back of my car currently. And I know I think when we shared it originally at the conference, like there are people who are like, "Oh, the slam against back," and it's not that. But like for the people who are on the fence about this, what would you tell them about the extendable bar? Because I think there's a lot of like I've tried to beat the shit out of this thing, to be put it bluntly, and I don't want to say I've purposely tried to break it, but it's pretty firefighter resistant. Um, I haven't shot it with a gun yet, but mainly I'm worried about ricochets, so I don't think we're going to do that. But no, like seriously, like what? Because it's a good tool. So what would you say to somebody who's like looking at the hair? Like if money's not the option here,
Yeah,
or the issue, what would you say about the extendable bar and why they should be looking into it?
yeah. It's the perfect question. And there's really a tool for everything, right? But it, it's one of those things where it is a specialty tool, right? It's like guys will say, well, I don't, what about the maintenance, or what about the this or the that? Um, it is a specialty tool, and it takes some light maintenance, right? You got to oil the trigger, you gotta open it up, check it out once in a while. It's not like a chainsaw, right? It's not You're not mixing fuel for it, cleaning the chain, replacing the chain. It's pretty low maintenance, but you have to do something. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're gonna use it at a fire and then throw it in the snowbank and go get it a month later, that's probably not the tool for you. Um, but if you're somebody that just takes care of your stuff, um, generally, it's going to last a really long time. And these Gen 2s we've made actually so there's replaceable components. So, for example, if your trigger mechanism gets slightly damaged or something like that, you can actually replace the whole thing. You can order the part right off our website. So it's meant to be like a good pair of leather boots where you wouldn't necessarily throw them away if you need new laces, right? It's
Right.
an expensive tool to begin with, so we don't want people to have to worry about things like that. Now, um, I guess to your point of like, is it for me or not? That's why we have 6 different Halligans we offer. So it might not be for everybody, but I'm a firm believer that Charlie bar should be on every rescue and truck in the country. Why?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you get that commercial strip shopping center is why we called it Side Charlie, because that's where we would find like the heavy reinforced doors right on the backside of buildings. Every truck should have that, right? Because like you might have that 1 out of 100 fires that has some serious forcible entry concerns, and why not have that extra leverage when you need it? Now somebody could say, well, I work in a very suburban area with one deadbolt and this and that. Okay, well, yeah, that's cool. If you want to rock the Heritage Bar, no, nothing bad or negative to you. It's just kind of like it's what you want, what you prefer. Um, I said, like I was saying, there's a lot of other benefits to it. You can reach with it, you can pop a hole, you can do this and that. So it's all personal preference, but we've kind of taken a viewpoint of we've never wanted to be have to convince people. It might not be for you, and that's not gonna hurt our feelings at all.
Right.
So
Well, and that, I mean, that's the whole point of having the multiple tools. But I just, I've seen, like I said, I've seen the advantage of it, and it's durable, and it's something that I watched get used over and over and over again. So, uh, I think that there's sometimes people they see things as gimmicky, but I can promise you, you pick the tool up and you feel it, you like just simply holding it, it's not a gimmick. It's
yeah,
like
yeah, it's got some weight to it. I mean,
yeah.
it's hefty. And when we were doing design stuff, it's funny. We were talking to engineers and stuff. It's like there's this dynamic, this three piece dynamic where you can make something cheap, you can make something light, and you can make something durable, right? You can only pick really 2 out of those 3 to do really well. You can maybe get the third, but you're gonna have to sacrifice a little bit on one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make it cheap and light. You can make it light and durable, but not cheap. And on and on and on. But what we did was try and hit, a nice middle point for all those things, and try and just give a good quality tool. It has to extend somehow. So, you know, if you're completely shut off to that idea, it's probably not going to be a good tool for you. But um, at least be open minded is what I tell guys, or try it out on the door. And usually when they try it out, then they become believers because they're like, oh wow, this is more robust than I thought. But if you just see it or hear about it or whatever, you're like, oh, I'm not using that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've definitely changed some people's minds, but there's always going to be people it's not for them.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to be as successful as we are. Um, so let me see here. I just want to look through my questions. Starting a firefighter-owned business, there's challenges, especially with the family. But what advice would you give to firefighters who want to start their own business? Like, what's their mindset have to be when it comes to doing this?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've done it all, right? I mean, you've gone through that journey, having the radio program and all that. So I'm sure these are some things you could touch on as well. But from my perspective, you have to be passionate.
Hmm.
You have to be like 150% in, because it is really really challenging. And when you come
Yeah.
off shift and you're exhausted, and your wife tells you, well, I thought we were going to hang out, and go do this today. And then you have to say, well, yeah, we are going to do that, but I have to get 4 orders out before that happens, or I have to go have a meeting with our production guys, or. So if you don't absolutely love it, maybe hold off. Um, but you could get it on like on the side, maybe you absolutely love it, but you're not dedicated to owning your own business, but you could get in with a company that you really really love, right? Somebody you guys believe in, and maybe you're with them for training, or you're with them for XYZ things, but you're not owning the business. I would say once you own the business, you're tied to it day and night. It doesn't go away, and that's something that that I'm proud of, but it's also something that's a big responsibility. And you can't just fold it up because you had a bad week.
Yeah.
You just have to push forward.
I think that it's one of the things, like especially with frontline mindset, like you and I'm learning it like now, is that you and you hit it. You said it very well. You just can't fold it up. You can't put it away because you have a bad week. It is you're constantly out doing something with it, thinking about it. It's on your mind, and I think the one thing that I've learned in the last year is that like I need to focus on this. On the frontline mindset, I can't focus on the frontline mindset and doing merchandising
Yep.
because I'm not there to be 100% in the merchandising just yet. And right now I handle some of the fulfillment stuff for National Fire Radio, but it's like this is work.
Yeah.
And it's a work that I can't explain to somebody. I can't explain, even actually even the better yet, like you saw me working the conference, right? So like that is like I come home from that and I don't sleep on the plane on the way out. I mean, sometimes I do take a nap because I think Jason got a picture of me, but like I um like on the trip home, I am irritable and exhausted. Like I'm because like I'm turned on the whole time of being the personality and doing the interviews, capturing the content, like constantly trying to look and see if I'm, like the video that we did, like making sure that like I think when we were lucky, we did it in one take. So like one take, everybody knows the rules. But like you have to be, you've got to be on to that, and it's like that with everything. Like there's no the only time that I get like like once we have a beer or whatever, but even then I'm still conversing with people, like we're still talking about the business. So
Right. It does have that exhaustion to it. Even when you have like the time of your life, like you get to have a weekend doing forcible entry with your best friends. I mean, how awesome is that? You go out and have beers afterward and all that stuff. But sometimes just the lead up to those conferences,
mm-hmm.
prepping the tools, prepping the wood, prepping,
The
there's
build outs.
there's like sometimes a week or two in advance where you're just trying to get ready for a 3 day thing. But I think you get the reward just from you got to have the personal gratification, because otherwise, at least for us, it's not a money thing.
Yeah.
It can't be. I mean, we could be doing other things to make more money. So it's it's completely rewarding. I mean, I get to go with my dad and brother, to all around the country in 4 stores. I mean, how fun is that? But at the same time, like you said, it's just exhausting. And I think though, like for yourself, like you're making an impact. I mean, when you guys were able to do those interviews for us and stuff like that, or even have us on the podcast, I mean, you're pushing forward other firefighter businesses, which I mean, I hope that you guys can see if you look back, like, hey, we're making an impact on the fire service. So we were really appreciative of you guys doing that for us at the lake, and there's just always been people that have really helped us out along the way, which is awesome.
Yeah. What where can firefighters and departments learn more about the tools or place an order for one?
Yeah, so we have our website, so sidecharlietools.com. That would be the best place to just kind of browse the tools and take a look there. But we have a lot of stuff on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find us at SideCharlieTools. And then as well, you can go to our YouTube page, which is also at Side Charlie Tools, I believe. So those are great spots because we do get questions about the tools or the extension, durability, all that stuff. You're going to see us video after video forcing doors. So that in itself kind of helps people
Right.
understand. Um, so yeah, and then please, you can call or email anytime. Like that's a nice thing. You're gonna call when you call the business. You're gonna talk to me. So there's people that just will sit and will chit chat. Like they might have some questions about what tool would be ideal for them. Um, we even offer like custom colors. So if your department, you know, if you can put a department wide order in, we can customize it where let's say the engines are getting a red halogen, where the truck gets a green halogen, something like that. So we have a lot of options that might not be kind of on your mind at first, but we try and advertise that through the website. But you can always kind of call us up too and ask us.
Is there anything that you want the audience to know about Side Charlie tools or the journey that we haven't touched on?
I think I think that just like understanding that um, we're just like any other firefighter, right? We're we are you. So we try and base our business off customer service, making relationships. So um, if you ever have an issue, if you ever have whatever, you can come to us. We're not going to screw you over. If you have a problem with your bar or whatever, just let us know. But yeah, we really try and provide really good customer service. So that's kind of what I would end it on. That's what our company's about.
Yeah, and I mean, plus, if you have a problem with the bar, you guys want to know about it for R&D purposes as well, and make sure that
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. You gotta tell us. If you got something going on, please don't hide it. Don't throw it in the locker and say, that's a piece of crap. Call us up. We don't want to leave you hanging. And we're the same way. We purchase tools and PPE and all that stuff just like you do. So, and when you're spending all your hard-earned money on stuff because you care about the fire service, we want to make sure you're happy. So,
yeah. Well, Joe, thank you for sitting in with me today and kind of going over the mindset of Side Charlie Tools and the business and getting the inspiration for this and just kind of talking and even touching on all the stuff with forcible entry. I know I appreciate it. So,
thank you, Rob. I really appreciate you having us on.
yeah, I'm going to do our outro here, but just hang out for a minute. So, everybody, this is Rob from Frontline Mindset with National Fire Radio here with Joe with Side Charlie Custom Tools. Check him out. He's got a great business. He's got a great product. I'm carrying 2 of them myself right now. And like I said, I can't speak enough about them. So if there's something that I'm using that I believe in, I want you to know it's coming from a good place here. We will see you guys at the next one. Thank you for tuning in. Be safe out there, and we'll catch you on the next one.